Hey, welcome back, everybody. Just bear with me on this video stuff. I'm struggling as usual. I ain't real video savvy, but glad to have you back uh, as we're continue to make the videos here on YouTube, and you know, ask like our stuff and subscribe. Uh, Try to get this thing picked off, and it'll take a lot of time. I understand, but we're just glad to have you, and I'll try to get better on videos and trying to make more content, as we put it. And I've been fighting with this camera all morning here, 2 or 3 hours, trying to figure it out, and I think it's about got me whooped. And but hey, just wanted to today, I said last night, when looking at about the trolling motor, and we traded trolling motors last night with this fine gentleman up in Bean Station, and he had a 24 volt, and that's what I needed, and I had a 12 volts, what he needed, and so we traded it out. But one thing I wanted to do today, as far as a help video, is talk about connections. And hey, I'm guilty as all of them. Just wire in a plug in, plug it in, and hit the water and wire it out. And then also guilty of cutting the wires and butt connecting them and wiring it straight in. And as long as you got a breaker somewhere in between your motor and your batteries, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not wrong to do that. I don't think there's a best way. Everybody's got an idea of their way and stuff, but I don't think there's a best way of wiring in your trolling motor, as long as you wire it in right. And you want good connections, good solid connections. You want your battery terminals tight, and you just want it wired in right. You're carrying either 12 volts or 24 volts or even 36 volts. And the problem you run into, and you bear with me on the camera, the problem you run into is about every trolling motor has this type of plug. And this is a 2-prong. Some of them have, you can't see it, don't worry about it. Some of them are 2-prong, and some of them are 4, with a switch where you can, flip it over between 12 and 24 volts. Well, the issue I have with these plugs is, we're running anywhere from 6 gauge to 8 gauge wire from the back of the boat to the front, and you can see the wire here. That's a copper strand, real pretty thick wire, and you get a good solid connection. And most people, when they bring this from the back, they'll put a butt connector right here to connect their wire coming from the motor, this wire, to these plugs. Well, I've got an issue with butt connectors myself. Is it's a round tube, and this wire slides in it, and then your other wire slides in it, and you crimp it on each side. Well, I don't have round wire. I've got 30 or 40 strands that makes up it ain't a solid, but makes up a firm core. And the problem I have with the butt connectors is I don't feel like you're getting a good solid current flow through a butt connector. And for the simple reason you don't have as much material carrying that flow of current, so you're going to have a resistance point. And if you got a resistance point here, think of it as a water hose, and you're not choking the water hose off, but that the water is your electricity. And as your electric current comes here and it runs through this butt connector, and you twist that hose off just a little bit. Well, now you've got a restriction at this point, and what's that do? The motor's calling for more power, for more water flow. So you put a heavy demand from your butt connector point to your trolling motor on that wire. So you'll find that as the more you use your motor, your wire will start to heat up and get hot. And we know what that heat and electronics don't go together, and that's not good. And to beat it all, you got a butt connector here, and then you're coming into this plug, and I know you can't see inside these plugs real good, but they are literally hollow pins. So I've essentially took a piece of metal and made another resistance point in my connection from my battery to my trolling motor. And in those hollow pins slide into tubes on the male end that goes into here. So here's another point of resistance. And even if you don't use these plugs and you wire it in straight, don't use butt connectors, in my opinion. I mean, and they said, well, Mr. Know-It-All, what do you use? Well, that's what I'm going to show you. And I've been doing this for a few years. I'm blankety years old. Yep, that old. And I found something that not only used for trolling motors, for my winch connections, and on the big boat, it's got a power winch on the front. And I've checked this with a voltmeter and an ohm meter. I don't lose any draw through these plugs, and they come from Amazon. And I don't have a link in the description, as everybody else says, but real simple and real easy to use. They come with these lugs. They're not a crimp-on lug, they're a solder-on lug. And that's what I like, because if you solder your ends correctly, you have a solid connection. You have a solid bond between your wire and your connector. And then as these plugs go together, you've got these big lugs that goes in these plugs, and they make a solid connection. You won't lose any current. There won't be no loss of current flow through this plug, I promise you. You can run your trolling motor on high all day long and don't have to worry about getting your wires hot. And when you pull it, and when your wires are getting hot, you know what you're doing? You're burning your trolling motor up. So here's what I do, which is, you know, it might not be the right way, it might not be the correct way, but it's what I do. I've got me a butane torch, and